Välkomna till Aktiespararna och Småbolagsdagen här i Stockholm. The next presentation that will be given here will be in English, and it is Luis Gomes who will talk about AAC Clyde space. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I will give you an introduction to the company and also looking at what we are doing in terms of the future, in terms of our investment. So, for those that are not familiar with AAC Clyde Space, we are a company that builds satellites, we build components for satellites, we design and manufacture in-house, we offer services from satellites, and we are very much operating in the small satellite business. So this is what we have seen, what we have been doing, companies like ourselves, what we have been doing is changing the way that we use space. And that is very much made possible because technology has evolved. We are now able to make these smaller satellites. These are making in turn, because they are lower cost, they are cheaper to produce, cheaper to put in orbit, they are actually making it much more accessible for data and services from satellites to be used here on the ground. And we tend not to think much about that, but our life depends very much on what we see, on data and information we get from space. So I think you are all familiar with weather forecasts. You see those pictures of nice pictures from taken from space, from clouds and from our atmosphere. That is used daily, but that's just one of the many uses that data taken from satellites, pictures, information, measurements are used on Earth to make our life better. And because of these small satellites are now enabling us to get a lot more data, we are seeing an uptake of data. So people are demanding more information. They see, well, there is more information available. And they say, well, could we do this? Could we do that? Could we get some more information? And this small satellite revolution is allowing us is enabling a revolution in the use and availability of data from space, data looking at the Earth, information about the Earth. And what we are seeing is that there are much more people nowadays that rather than wanting to own satellites, they just want information, they just want the data. And we are enabling them to do that through our business model. And particularly in 2023, we are seeing an inflection point. We are saying that we are transitioning from supplying mostly hardware, computers, power systems, satellite, to others, but we are now starting to deliver more information, more data to customers around the world. And as I mentioned, this increased need for data also follows some trends that we are seeing on the Earth, on our society. These mega trends that are driving our need for more information, for more data. The first is, of course, sustainability. We all know that we have some challenges in our environment, be it pollution, be it climate change, be it pressure on our ability to produce food. And satellites offer us this global perspective that allows us to manage the globe in one go. So we can actually image the Earth, we can actually picture the Earth and know what needs to be done. At the same time, we have been developing this interconnected world, the Internet of Things. And what this is doing is that it allows us a lot more control over our assets, over the world around us. But to do that, to make good decisions, we need more information. So that in itself is also bringing the need for more information. And then, of course, the blue economy. We tend to think very much about the world as where we live, the world around us. But the fact is, 2/3 of the surface of our planet are water. And space, again, allows us to actually manage the oceans much better. So we as a company, we are working in all of these areas. We are developing the tools that allow us to monitor the Earth, to generate more information, to have more information about it. And this is possible because we have changed radically the way we build and operate satellites. When I started, I'm showing my age here, probably 25, 30 years ago, we were still building these very large, very heavy, very expensive satellites. Each one of them was unique because they were so expensive. They were owned by governments. And they delivered data usually to government And that data was very precious, and it was very difficult to access it. I remember trying to buy it when I was a student. I was trying to buy some data for a project. It was very difficult. You had to go through these organizations. It was very expensive. It was very bureaucratic. And what we have seen over the last few years is that as satellites become smaller, they become much cheaper. They are cheaper to build. They are cheaper to launch. And as we do that, this has changed the ownership of the satellite. So no longer governments are now the major customer and the major owner of satellites. It's the private sector, the commercial sector. And of course, the commercial sector needs to make money. So data has become much more available. Nowadays, if you want data from the Earth, pictures, you have several companies that supply you that data. And what that has done is these more satellites generate more data, better data, because if you've got more satellites, you can be looking at more parts of the Earth at the same time, so you can have better data. What this more data has done is that it has become much easier to access data, information. And that has made many more applications for information from space possible. So, setting the scene, companies like ourselves, what we have been doing is generating that information. We are actually supplying that demand for more information. I'm talking a little bit about our company. We are present, we are headquartered here in Sweden, but we are present in 5 different countries. So Sweden, the UK, our biggest manufacturing facilities in the UK. We have a facility in the Netherlands, in the US, and also in South Africa. We're about 180 people, give or take. And as I said, our background is producing components for satellites. So we still do a big business of that. But then we started making our own satellites and selling it to different companies. We work for companies like Eutelsat, for instance. And then we started a few years back to invest in our own satellites. So we own satellites, we own a constellation of satellites, and from that we then sell data, sell information, sell services to a variety of customers around the world. And we have been growing, so we are a company that has grown. We, for instance, in the first quarter of 2023, we did as much revenue as in the whole year of 2019, or more actually. We did more than we did in 2019. And we are moving towards a positive EBITDA. We have positive EBITDA on the first quarter this year, but our objective is to actually be have a full positive EBITDA in 2023. And we are growing, and we have targets to grow our revenue over the next few years, very much on the back of this need for more information and more data. And by doing that, we are not only providing more subsystems and components and satellites for others, but we are also providing more information, and we see a great opportunity to grow the company on that. So in terms of our organization, we have companies that specialize much more on the development and deployment and supply of small subsystems and components. We have companies in the group that are specialized in the building of satellites and the exploitation operation. And what this gives us is quite a lot of experience. We are a company with a lot of experience of building and operating satellites. And this is one of the big differentiators over many of our competitors. We have actually done these. We have built many satellites. We have about 30 satellites in orbit now. And that gives us quite a lot of experience of how to design, how to build, and how to operate them. So focusing a little bit more now on the space data as a service. This is the model that, to make it accessible, to make data more accessible to our customers. How can we do that? And so we looked at this model of doing space data as a service. And this is where we own our spacecraft. We have a dialogue with our customers, the customers that do not want to own the satellites. Owning and operating satellites requires experience, requires infrastructure. So many customers, rather than do that, they want to focus on their business. And so they come to us and say, I just want the data and the information. You guys put the satellites up there, you run them, you operate them, and you just give me what I need. And an example of that data is on the screen there, on the right-hand side. What you can see, each red dot, is a message from a ship. So ships, as they go along, they broadcast these signals and they tell who they are, what they're doing, where they're going. It's called AIS. And we have a few satellites in orbit that specialize in collecting these messages. So every ship above 300 tons has to have one of these systems. And they tell us who they are. And then we have customers that use that, some to track ships. They want to know who is doing what, where. Sometimes they are coast guards. Sometimes are just shipping companies. Other times are news outlets. So we currently did a contract to provide someone with information about who is sailing in the Arctic. So they wanted to know, in the last 10 years, who has been sailing in the Arctic, particularly when there is no ice. And so we sold them a data set. But this is very much a growth business, because we see more and more people wanting this type of model and access to data. So currently we operate three main types of business or sub ways of doing business. So we do capacity subscription. This is when someone comes to us and says, I would like to actually have I would like to buy the entire capacity of a satellite for X number of years. We now have 4 satellites in orbit to provide this data. We then, of course, have annual subscriptions. Some people come to us and say, for a year, I want to buy a certain percentage of data from a satellite. And we already operate this model. We have been operating for a few years in this model. And then, of course, someone comes to us and they want to access some of the data we already have. This is the news outlet I mentioned. So these are the models we are working, and we are currently doing about 16.9 million SEK, or last year we did in revenue from these, but we have a backlog of 166. And if we had more satellites in orbit, this could probably be higher. So we are focusing very much on growing our constellation in 2 areas. One is for farming and forestry. This is a market where we see a great opportunity. This is a well-known market, has been growing. We need more. We need to produce food better. We need to control our crops better. Currently, this is a market that is expected to be worth about $1 billion a year in revenue per year by 2030. We don't expect to capture all of that. We expect to capture a part of that. We've identified one area of this market that is underserviced, and we are building 4 satellites to provide that kind of data. And this is about monitoring crops, knowing who is growing what, how much food is being produced around the world. And governments and private sector pays for this kind of information quite a lot. I spent many years working on this. This is an area that I know pretty well. And then, of course, as we go forward, the need to actually reduce how much we spend on producing food, how much damage we do to the environment by pollution and by the use of pesticides and fertilizers and water in producing our food is driving us to do what we call precision agriculture. And there we see a great opportunity over the next few years. So currently we are building this constellation to deliver this type of data. And we see a great upside in the future when we move towards precision agriculture. We didn't build our business model on that, but we are doing that. And then, of course, we are building together with Saab and Orbcom, we are building a satellite to do VHF data exchange system. This is the future of ship tracking, but also will allow us to actually build, to communicate with ships. So currently we are building a satellite for this year in Sweden. We have a couple others being built to launch next year. And we want to be the first ones to offer a commercial service to do exactly this. And through this partnership that we have with probably 2 of the biggest players in this area, we are in a very strong position to do exactly that. So if you look forward in terms of our evolution, what we are doing now is to build these satellites, to build our own constellation, to be able to offer more data, more information, more services. So first and foremost, we are delivering as part of, we have a program together with the European Space Agency and the UK Space Agency. We have an opportunity to develop 10 satellites. We are developing 4 for our farming and forestry business. And as part of that, we are doing rights issue right now to actually secure that program and to be able to grow our constellation in that sector. It's an opportunity, it's timely. The satellites that currently are producing that type of data are reaching their end of life from competitors. So we have an opportunity now to actually capture that market. At the same time, we are deploying our constellation for space data for VDES, as I mentioned, for our maritime service that will be rolling out throughout this year and next year. Our plan is over the next 18 months to add another 7 satellites. Actually, from these, 3 have been added this week. Or 2 have been added, further 2 satellites have been added this week, sorry. So on Monday, Falcon 9 rocket launched 3 more satellites, 2 of which are for space data as a service. 1 is for a customer. So we are progressing our activity. And as a summary, and I know that I'm already a little bit over, but as a summary, we are a company that we have grown the capabilities to actually design, build, and operate satellites. And because of that, we have a great opportunity to grow into the services model because we know how to do it, we know how to build satellites. And our target eventually is to get to do 2.2 billion SEK a year of revenue by 2030. And we think that the market is there, the opportunity is there. So thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis. I was thinking during the presentation, we live in an uncertain world. And does it affect you? Is the demand increasing that sort of we need more information because we are afraid of what might happen? And I'm thinking of the uncertainty in Ukraine, for example. Does things like that affect your company? Is the demand increasing for your services based upon things that I just mentioned?
Yes, it is. And actually what you'll see, for instance, when I mentioned part of our drive to do a constellation to provide more service for agriculture is driven by the uncertainty on food production. So we all saw that our ability to actually buy wheat from Ukraine was diminished. That has created challenges for everyone around the world in terms of how much food we have to feed everyone. But also things like fertilizer. A lot of it comes from Russia and Ukraine. And if we can't access that, we have to reduce that. I give a quick example. The UK, for instance, in the United Kingdom, farmers used about 700 million pounds worth of nitrogen-rich fertilizer. That is a huge amount of fertilizer that is used every year. It's estimated that if we could improve the way we farm, through precision agriculture, we can reduce that by about 10–15%. Okay. That's a huge amount of reduction, not only in cost for farmers, so to reduce the price of food, but also in terms of the need for fertilizer, the pollution that it generates. So that's a very important thing, and it's driving a lot of the demand for more information and more data.
We have a question from a viewer, and the question says as follows: is space becoming crowded? And how do you attain licenses to launch satellites?
So one of the advantages of being an older company in the new space world is that actually we have that experience. So we have satellites licensed in the United States, in the United Kingdom. We have quite a lot of experience of doing that. We are doing that right now here in Sweden. We'll be doing that, and also in Canada. So we have actually an experienced team that can put together the licensing process. We are also very good space citizens, so we make sure that our satellites comply with the rules and regulations. We are very careful that our satellites deorbit at the end of life, so they don't stay there producing debris and junk, so they come down. We design them specifically for that. Okay. So we do that, but I think part of that is having that experienced team that can put together the licensing process, and that's very important. Okay.
Another question that we got from the audience is as follows. What is the reasoning behind your facilities all around the world? You mentioned that you're in 5 different places, and why are you not in one specific country in order to...
Yeah, there are several reasons. One is because we usually look for specific talent.
Okay.
And that's usually not in one place.
No.
It also makes it a bit easier to recruit around the world. Space is an international business. So you need to actually find the talent where it is. And also because it allows us to then, for instance, when we are licensing satellites, to have different places where we can license satellites. And again, it's a global business. We work with many different governments, so having presences in different locations is good. So for instance, having a presence in the United States is fundamental to do business in the US. Having a presence in South Africa helps us to do a lot of business in Africa. So that's an important aspect also. But mostly it was about looking for the best talent and the best groups of people to work with us.
Okay. Someone would like to ask you to explain your M&A strategy and the financing required for that particular strategy.
So currently, and as I say many times, we are not on the market to buy companies.
No.
We have on occasions had opportunities. Companies have come to us, and if it's a good business, we will of course go and try to finance it. But it's always dependent on our ability to do that. But we are not on the market now.
Okay.
But if a good deal, as had happened in the past, and we mentioned, for instance, in one of our reports that last year we did look at a deal of M&A, didn't go through. It was an interesting deal for the company. And if that happens, yes, we'll look into it and we'll see.
So basically, you're open to discuss, but you're very selective.
Yes, we are extremely selective. We are looking particularly on companies in downstream that strengthen our data business now. Yeah. We have enough companies in hardware. We can build satellites very well. We can operate them. Yeah. So we are looking mostly there, but we'll always keep an eye. Okay. So we are not. We're
not saying no, thank you.
We're not saying no, thank you, but it's not also something that we are out there looking for.
No. For the time being, you are doing a capital increase. Could you explain a little bit more about what's going on and what the offer looked like?
So we are doing a rights issue right now, and very much it was driven, like I mentioned there, by the fact that we have an opportunity now to grow our constellation. So we have one project. It's partly financed by us, partly financed by space agencies and governments. So we have an opportunity to capture that. We have to actually have some money to put on the table.
To match it.
To match it. Okay. And to that way to make the best use of that funding now. And as I said, there is a timeline that is important. Yep. There is an opportunity now because the market is underserviced. Yeah. And yes, it's not the best time to actually go to the capital markets, but there is this opportunity now. And if we didn't do it now, we would lose it. And strategically is a very important step for us.
So for the company, it's a very good opportunity to do it, actually.
Yes, yeah. It's the right time to actually capture that market.
Yep. Competition, Ovzone. Relevant, not relevant, forget it, talk about it. How do you
Not really our competitors. Ovzone are not competitors.
Of course, but competition in general.
Competition in general. I actually, in my previous job, I almost was a supplier to them a few years back. But competition in general, we are in a strong position in the sense that we have lots of experience. We have a good team of engineers and business people that know how to actually address these markets. We have built this team over the years. But yes, the competition is strong, particularly in the hardware business. But we have been very successful in terms, particularly our components and subsystems to other satellites. We sold quite a lot to the US this year, for instance. We have quite a strong business there, supplying other people, other manufacturers of satellites. But the competition is strong. In the data side, the services and data probably less, mostly because we have been building over the last few years and requires a certain amount of time. So we are able to offer to our customers to offer better deals in that. But this is strong, yes. We always have lots of competition.
Good. What kind of 3 things would you like us to remember from today's presentation here when we're leaving? things that you would like to really print in our forehead. This is Clyde space, and think about this.
So we are a company with a very strong. We are a company with a very strong background in terms of the technology.
Yep.
We have abilities to build and design spacecraft and to operate them. We see a great opportunity. The market is changing for data. There is a huge demand of data. It's a market that not only is growing fast, but also has much better margins than, for instance, what we have on hardware. You're talking about 30-40% net margins in data and services. In hardware, you are usually at 10-15%. But with data and services, you have 30-40%. So we see a huge opportunity to leverage that new type of demand for data and services to grow our company, and to grow our company a lot. It's an aggressive growth, but it's perfectly viable, given the demand that we are seeing for those kind of services and data and information from space.
Very good. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thanks for being here, and good luck to you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.